100% in Battle for Bikini Bottom has gotten major improvements in the past year. The category itself is 20 minutes faster. There are all kinds of new tricks to route out some of the stuff that was perceived to be casual or just straight up boring in the past. I mean, you can imagine like 20 minutes of time, a lot has to be done to cut that down. But the biggest thing that has caused this run to really drop in time, you'll see later in the second part of Goo Lagoon. We'll save it for a bit. But for now, we're going to head over to Jellyfish Fields like we usually do in these speedruns. Usually the first place you go in these categories is Jellyfish Fields. Just because, it's the first place you can disable the hand without having to unlock any other areas like downtown or Goo Lagoon. So we're going to use the taxi pad to abuse the hand mechanic here that drags you out of bounds to leave the area with the hand on the screen, which causes it to be disabled and allows you to go out of bounds and get stuff like spatulas and whatnot from areas you shouldn't be in the first place. Now, in this run, we're actually going to use hand mechanics more than once, where we'll bring the hand out of the run like we just did there. We'll bring it back in to use the hand to use some cutscene skips and stuff, and then we're going to take it out again to finish the run. So this category, unlike no SBA, uses the hand a lot more effectively because it allows for it, since there are more cutscenes you can skip in this category. There's more content to do. So again, we're just going to grab the spatula out of bounds like we do in no SBA. But unlike that category, we're actually going to go straight back to Bikini Bottom now. And this is because it's actually faster to finish the rest of Jellyfish Fields later in 100%. See, since we need to collect all 100 spatulas in the entire game in this category, it's not really a matter of getting to 75 anymore, so we can just save all the stuff like that for later. Because there are other spatulas that we have to get anyway that we can do before Industrial Park to get cruise boosting. I'll explain all that later. But what I'm doing right now is attempting to skip the first hub area. Now, this skip is referred to as Robo Sandy skip, and despite the name, you actually have to you have to actually fight Robo Sandy later, even though you skip it the first time around. You have to go back to fight the robot to get the power-up to use for cruise boosting, which is a major exploit later that really dominates the latter half of the run. As I mentioned earlier, it's used in Jellyfish Fields. But what I'm doing right now is I'm kind of just jumping out of bounds. If I stand on the sand here for more than 5 seconds at a time, the hand will get re-enabled and ruin the run. Now, it's pretty hard for that to happen, as long as you know what you're doing, but it's still a caution for newer players, who are less experienced. That's a pretty easy spot to re-enable the hand if you're not careful. Now, here, a major difference for Bikini Bottom levels like Tree Dome and Krusty Krab, excuse me, not Krusty Krab, just the Tree Dome here, is that we can't use the Bubble Bowl power-up to destroy these robots, so it makes it a little bit more RNG heavy. Sometimes you can lose up to 5 seconds to RNG here, whereas in any percent, you normally lose around maybe a second or two at worst if you play well. So yeah, it just makes the Bubble Bowl is a projectile move that makes it a lot easier to combat these robots. So it's kind of a little bit more harsh in this category because you can't use it. But yeah, the Bubble Bowl is the power-up you acquire from defeating Robo Sandy. And if you see this 40 gate over here, that's the entrance to the Robo Patrick boss fight for getting past the second hub world. And we're going to skip over that too with this trick called SpongeBob storage to activate the SpongeBob on this cliff. Now we're going to use some wacky physics to get on top of the Chum Bucket over here. Now in the 80% run, we actually use a frame-perfect jump to get on top here. But in this category, it's kind of an annoying trick, but it's not nearly as precise. But yeah, the beginning of the run so far, we're in an area that would normally require 41 spatulas to enter in the casual game, and we're here with 5. So just been the first few minutes of the run, we've already pretty much broken the game to the point where we're actually right outside the final boss. Unfortunately, there's no way to actually activate the loading zone without the 75 spatulas, but in a 100% run, it wouldn't matter anyway, because we have to get 100 spatulas anyway. Now, unlike the any percent no SBA run, we're not going to do the Krusty Krab there. We're going to do it later because it works out for sock count and shiny object routing. But a big reason why is because it's a little bit faster to do that area with the Bubble Bowl active, because there are a lot of things that you need the projectiles for. And here doing these dream skips, which again, this area we should not be in. We should have already completed, the majority of the game at this point to be in this area. This is all very, very broken what we're doing right now. using these spike blocks to climb up these levels instead of paying these toll gates. A lot of this run is avoiding paying toll gates, like the clams you'll see laying around. You have to pay shiny objects, which are the currency objects in the top right corner of the screen whenever I get them. We pay those to get into these toll gates and areas. But we want to save as many as we can to not have to collect them later. It loses more time. Now, unlike the any percent no SPA run, we do a trick called oil skip here. Now, the alternative to this is called quick slick, which works if you're on the correct damage cycle after doing a 1-frame jump to get the spatula for super bounce, which you'll also get later because the bubble ball makes that faster as well. But yeah, just it's a lot more consistent. It is a little bit slower in any percent to do oil skip that way, whereas the 1-frame you don't have to set it up to slide off the ground. But that's kind of a basic concept you have to understand for this run. It's not as relevant in this category, but if you press the A button on the 1-frame, and again, this game runs in 60 FPS, so it's 1/60th of a second precision. If you press the A button on the 1-frame you have to jump between your your damage animation and your falling animation, SpongeBob will be able to do a single jump, like a grounded jump in midair, and then you can get a second jump off of that. So it's really useful for damage boosting. The correct term for it is called frame perfect triple jumps, but we usually just refer to them as just 1-frames. That's like kind of the slang for it. What we just did there, an alternative to the SpongeBob method here, the Sandy method is actually a little bit slower as well for the 80% run, but at 100%, getting the checkpoint there and dying in the manure truck is actually fast because we can actually do this area without using cruise boosting in the beginning of the run. So let's us get to this area over here to collect some of these socks, because collecting these socks is actually fast in the beginning of the run as opposed to doing it later. There actually is a crazy strat that's used to do these socks and the spatula with SpongeBob, but it's only relevant in a category called 100% in-game codes, which is just 100% where you collect everything in the game, but you're also allowed to use cheat codes. Because funny enough, the categories that allow some cheat codes are actually pretty cool. Like, they enhance the game in a lot of ways. They allow you to do cruise boosting early. They open up some new routing options, and it's super fun. But in this category, we're just going to use Sandy to get that stuff. So now we're done with SpongeBob's Dream for now. We're going to return later to get some stuff with the Bubble Bowl power-up, but now we're just going to do the Annoy Squidward Spatula, which has gotten way cooler in the past year as well. We found a way to collect the spatula during the sock cutscene, so we're going to hit the little musical stand over there, and during the cutscene, the 6-second animation for the spatula is going to play. So it makes the spatula go from 8 seconds to 5 seconds in duration. So, excuse me, not the spatula, the sock. The sock costs an extra 5 seconds to get from the spatula. So it's just barely slow enough to not make it into the 80% run. But again, 100% we gotta get everything, including this sock here, which is kind of dumb, but again, it's 100% you gotta get everything. So now we're gonna go straight to Goo Lagoon, which is also gonna be a little bit shorter than you remember in the 80% run, because we're gonna save some of the stuff later during SBA, and you'll understand why that is later as well. Why we want to save some stuff to do during the SBA segment where we're grinding for shiny objects. So here we're going to do an out-of-bounds cutscene skip. The cutscene only loses 1 second to watch, but again, a second is a second, so we're going to do a little bit of risky jumps out here to skip that cutscene that introduces the monsoon into the run. And now we're going to head over to the tower. We're going to do Sponge Glide. Now, there's a new trick here called Early Towers Glide. You might not remember if you haven't watched the run in a while. And unlike the past 5 years of playing this game, there's now a new trick that is more optimized and sends you straight to the left island over there in the distance with the crates on it. Because normally in the past what we'd have to do is we'd have to go straight to the right island. And then from the right island, we just boost over to the left island and then boost all the way back. So going straight to this island is a lot more optimized. It saves an entire trip over. So the whole thing together saves around 8 seconds. It's a pretty nifty trick. It's also very accessible to beginners. And we're going to do a damage boost over there. Now, as I mentioned before, doing grounded moves in midair is frame perfect. However, in that specific situation and several others where you slide across a ledge, you're not actually airborne when you're going across those crates. You're actually sliding off of them. So sliding across the crates gives you a few extra frames to perform what used to be a 1-frame jump if you didn't set it up that way. In some situations, it's faster. In some situations, it's slower. In some situations like that one, it's just straight up impossible to do without setting up that way because oftentimes you get like more height off of not doing it that way. So yeah, and Goo Lagoon in this category is a little bit different as well, because we're just going to go straight to the destroying the ticket booth, but we're not going to collect the spatula yet because you have to destroy the bumper boats, and it's actually faster to go and destroy the bumper boats on the way to SBA. So you're going to see here, like, early game in this category is very fast, even though we do get some extra socks along the way that take up a little bit of time because it's 100%. You're going to notice that we're going to get out of Poseidome very quickly, and after that, the rest of the game is just kind of waiting for us. Yeah, we got to get a sock over here. Part of the reason why I love this routing, again, like I always tell people, this is my favorite routing job I've ever done in the game because of just how well the sock route works out. We're going to end Goo Lagoon with 10 socks and 14 spatulas. And this allows us to trade, well, I should have mentioned earlier that you can trade in 10 socks for 1 golden spatula to Patrick, and there are 80 socks in the game. So there are 8 golden spatulas you can get from Patrick, and there are 80 socks in total you collect. So we have to pace them out, though, to make sure that we're not wasting time with loading screens. Again, loading Patrick's, loading the area where you talk to Patrick to trade in the socks more than once is not really desirable, because you have to factor in that it takes time to load into him. So yeah, we're going to go straight to Patrick anyway in this situation because we have to go to the Poseidome, which is right next to it. So either way, if we were trading socks or not, we'd still be going here. So it just works out that we have 15 spatulas, which is the requirement for getting into the Poseidome, and 0 socks here. And again, you'll see later that we're going to enter, it's a little bit different later because the Krusty Krab does have a sock inside of it, but it's faster to do the Krusty Krab with the bubble bowl. So we're going to enter the Krusty Krab before Industrial Park with 40 spatulas and 0 socks. So it just works out very nicely. Now again, Robo Sandy is unchanged in this category. Unfortunately, there are only a couple of categories where you can really skip this boss fight. And in one of them, it's not really RTA viable because it would only save like 5 seconds if you could anyway. Yeah, this fight still needs to be completed to finish the 100% run. But what I'm doing here is I'm just luring her to stay around the center of the stage, so when I get her to approach me in the center, she jumps earlier than usual. That's just pretty much all it is for Phase 1. In other categories, though, where you have the Cruise Bubble and Bubble Bowl already active, you can just clip through the floor. It's a pretty inconsistent and barely RTA viable strat, just because you can do it in the beginning of the run for the one category it's really viable in. But if you do that successfully in that category, it saves 3 whole minutes. It's pretty awesome. I'll probably run that category in the future once it becomes more viable to do. But for now, it's just not really realistic, honestly. It'd take forever to get a run started that way. This phase is a little bit different, where you may have noticed that the cutscene that I skipped, the scoreboard box just fell from the ceiling, so it's going to lay over there. And all we have to do is manipulate Sandy to, again, land close to these clotheslines on the side. I just call them clotheslines because that's what they just call it, the clothesline move, which is like the wrestling thing. Yeah. I love the humor in this game. But anyway, you're just throwing the robot head into the electric. That does the damage. Do this 3 times and you move on to the next phase with SpongeBob. These boss fights are really just made to test your skills that were taught to you in the first few levels of the game. At this point, the game doesn't really introduce too many more really advanced combat moves than just like using the Bubble Bash, which is the Viking helmet move, using the Bubble Bounce, which is the feet move. There really isn't much more that's taught to you in the first hub area. But funny enough, like as I mentioned earlier, we've already played all 3 hub areas, so well, we're already a step ahead, Yeah, it's nice that this category lasts for like an hour and 25 minutes because the 3 minutes of this boss fight heavily outweighed by the rest of the run because there's just so much more to talk about and so much more to see. Like, immediately after this level, we're going to go straight to Goo Lagoon and do the SBA trick, which is really just a super mind-blowing, and honestly, I can't even believe, it's still hard to believe that trick is real. Back in 2016, we used to joke around about like, hey, what if you could just get a ball stuck in the skee-ball machine and generate infinite money? Well, guess what? Like, I mean, sometimes it just works out, man. Sometimes the game just keeps giving to you, even things you don't ask for. But the second phase of this category, where you finish the Robo Sandy fight, is pretty neat though. Unlike the no SBA run, which is split into two main parts with cruise boosting and no cruise boosting, this category has three major sections where you have no power-ups, the ability to do SBA, and the ability to cruise boost. So now we're in the SBA phase, where we're going to do SBA and all the Bubble Bowl related things. The routing changes based on shiny objects too, because after this moment we have the majority of the shiny objects we're going to need for the rest of the run. Then we're doing the bumper boats as Patrick, unlike the NSBA run where we do it as SpongeBob, because we're doing it on the way to SBA. And now remember, we don't need a checkpoint there because we're not going to be using the death warp here. As a matter of fact, it's really important to avoid dying on the pier, because if you die, then your progress for SBA resets and you got to redo the whole thing. That's a nifty little one-frame jump. If you press the jump button on the first frame that you touch the ground, you can get a little bit of a boost. But you know, just a little neat trick, a little swag. All right, this part is a little bit slow to set up, but the payoff is huge, so just trust me. We're going to get these two tikis over here and bring them over to the skee-ball machine. Now, if you don't know what the skee-ball machine does already, I mentioned earlier that you had the bowling ball power-up that we haven't seen yet in this run. We're going to use that to, well, in the casual play, you would use the bowling ball to, you know, shoot it into the machine over here, and the higher the hole you get, the more money you get. So, like, the highest center hole is a 50. You got, like, the ones that descend are, like, you know, 40, 30, 20, and 10. So now we're just going to set up the SBA trick to put the tiki in the proper spot. This is kind of precise movement here, where you got to have the controller, like, right outside the dead zone to barely get the setup to work. You got to throw the tiki in a very specific spot. And if you put it in the wrong spot, then you won't get the glitch. The glitch will just not work. So now we're going to put the bowling ball into the booth, set this up to put the tiki on top of this ramp. Now we're going to wait for the tiki. We're going to wait for the ball to go in the corner and fire away, and there we go. So actually, that did not work. I forgot. I did this run like a month ago, I think. So now I got to reset it up. Yeah, it's what happened was the ball popped out because it was in the wrong spot. So now this one should work. Yeah, it was good enough. It was good in the corner. So you see the 10 constantly flashing on the screen. So, and the reason why I'm not moving right now is because I'm just kind of waiting for it to generate shiny objects. I'm actually putting on my headphones. It's kind of like a gag, like a meme we have going on that, like, it makes a funny noise when it goes through. So I put on the headphones in my run when that happens. So the 10 is flashing on the screen because every other frame, so again, this game runs in 60 FPS, so it's running 30 times per second. You have the SBA trick working. So what's happening under the hood, again, you can't really see it because I'm not over there anymore, but under the hood of the SBA machine, or the skee-ball machine, you just have the ball moving in and out of the trigger that gives you the shiny objects on every other frame. So 30 times per second, it's giving you 10 shiny objects, so it's generating, again, the quick maths, 300 shiny objects per second. So it's by far the fastest grinding method in the game. The fastest before was I think 59.5 per second, which is the method that I found. But yeah, this method was found by like several modders and a tasser and reverse engineers working together to figure out how to make this thing work, which is really remarkable. It's a true feat of the community to actually have this trick be a real thing in the run. But unfortunately, you gotta wait. It's a lot better than what it was before. Before this trick was a thing in 100%, you'd have to hit a bunch of shiny object tikis and jump off the bridge on the sandcastle for 10 minutes to keep generating them. But now, instead of waiting for 10 minutes, you only gotta wait for around a minute total. So this is just gonna generate. It's gonna keep going. And soon enough, we're going to head over to the underside of the pier where we're going to wait for the shiny object count to reach, I think it's around 46,000. which is a lot. Now, see how I'm kind of walking over now? It's kind of hard to tell based on the number in the upper right corner. It kind of looks like you're at 27,000 right now, but we actually have way more than that because we're generating shiny objects so quickly that the count has not caught up to the actual number yet. So you'll see when I land under here, it's going to stop for a second. And we're right there at 41K, 42K really. So we're just going to move over here, turn the camera. Funny enough, the trick stops working if the camera's in the wrong spot. So this camera angle that I have here is actually necessary to make the trick work. So we're just going to wait for this to get to 46K, head over and get the spatula from Mr. Krabs for destroying the bumper boats. I think the route in this category is super cool because it really shows like a super good understanding of how the game works, and that, you know, like these spatulas, like just because you do the challenge or finish the thing now, it's faster to collect it later. It's faster to do this in that order compared to like what we usually do with no SBA, where we just do everything in a similar order that we would in kind of like a casual run, where you would do Jellyfish Fields, Downtown, Goo Lagoon, and after that it kind of breaks off. Straight from the start, this category is unique in that it just goes all over the place and constantly jumps around and backtracks even in mid-game. Pretty much the only weird thing up until the cruise boost segment as far as world ordering goes in no SBA is just switching rock bottom and dream. But other than that, like it's very true to how the game should be played, with some crazy skips and glitches in the middle, like tossed into the actual levels themselves. But this category is way different in that the ordering is super weird, and that's what I love about it. It's so much fun. Now, the reason why we didn't do this earlier, actually, is because we didn't have enough shiny objects to buy the clam. As I mentioned before, the clams require you to have a certain number of currency to open them. So we had to wait until after SBA to have enough to do it. Also, those robots are super annoying. Yeah, so this is just Swingers Ahoy. There's a really crazy strat to just teleport across the entire map to get here, but it's not fast in this category, unfortunately, so we probably won't see that, maybe ever, but who knows, man. At least in this category, we probably won't see it ever, but it could happen in a different category. It's viable in other ones. So again, we're using the bubble bowl to launch ourselves up there and set up a one-frame jump to grab that spatula. Again, it's really picking off individual spatulas that are situationally faster with certain power-ups and just saving them for the points where they actually save a lot of time. So now we're going to go ahead and buy all the spatulas from Mr. Krabs. And this is the reason why SBA is so broken in this game. So usually, if you already know what cruise boosting is, you understand this. If you don't know what cruise boosting is, it's an exploit that makes you move a lot faster. And I'll explain it in detail later. But you can only get this power up after you have 41 spatulas, and part of the struggle of normal any percent runs or any percent no SBA runs is that you have to find the fastest 40 spatulas to get to late game, and then everything else after that gets way faster because you need to get the cruise boost as fast as possible. Now, having these extra 7 spatulas to buy from Mr. Krabs in the beginning of the game, it makes a huge difference because now you have 7 spatulas that you don't have to collect now. You can just collect them later, and you can save spatulas that would have been slower before cruise boosting for the cruise boosting segments that are now faster just by having them. So it makes a huge difference, which is again part of the reason why any percent with SBA is such a busted run now, because it turns the whole beginning of the game into like just doing almost really like it's like a fourth less of content in the beginning of the any percent run for a really low payoff, which is the reason why it's not as popular as the no SBA run, where you have, again, like 7 extra spatulas to do, and 3 extra ones that actually are not like waiting for stuff to go through. Because with what you just saw here, you may have noticed I did the tower climb spatula and the under the pier spatula as well, like during SBA. Since you're waiting for that to go through, you're not really on a time crunch. You can just kind of wait, and you can mess that up as many times as you want while SBA goes through. You got plenty of time to make mistakes, because you got to wait for it. You know, you have to wait for the glitch to be over. So because of that, like, people just prefer to do any percent without SBA, which is the reason why we have a separate category for it, because it's been optimized for so long, people just prefer to play the game that way. So now we have this damage boost here to grab this sock. Again, this is the sock category. A lot of people assume that this category is just getting more spatulas, but if you really think about it, you finish the game with 77 spatulas. That means there are 23 left that you don't get in the any percent no SPA run and the any percent run in general. There are 23 that you just don't get. In this category, you collect 23 more spatulas than you do in no SPA. 7 of those are Mr. Krabs spatulas, and 5 other ones are spatulas from collecting socks. But additionally, you collect 50 more socks than you do than no SPA. It's 50 more socks. So it's not even really a category of getting extra spatulas, because there aren't even that many extra missions you do. It's mostly just getting socks. It's the sock category. It's pretty similar to, I guess, like 120 shines in Super Mario Sunshine, where a lot of the extra content that you get in that category is extra blue coins. So it's pretty similar. It's just this game's a lot shorter because there's not as much content. And also, this game is like way more busted with its skips. Like, you can pretty much skip anything in this game. This tower puzzle is pretty funny. You don't have to even use the melons for this. It's actually slightly faster to not use the melon. And additionally, you don't even have to press these buttons in any specific order. As long as you press each button one time, it just solves itself. That's just kind of how the math works, I guess. But we're coming up to this next skip here, called Main Chamber Skip, or Mermalair Slide Skip, or however people prefer to call it. But this allows us to skip to the end of the Mermalair and unlock the Prawn boss fight, which you normally get for hitting all these buttons you just saw there. Hitting all 4 buttons usually unlocks this fight by dropping the bridge that you see up in the upper right corner. But now, because we're here early, we can just hit the buttons like in the fastest order possible instead of having to worry about going back here now. And again, like getting these buttons, you can't skip out on them just because you've already been to Prawn. You have to get all 4 buttons to unlock the spatula at the end of the level, so you can't just skip out on it. Security Tunnel, another level that you skip a lot of content in. Using the geometry here, just jumping on the edge and damage boosting off of this turret can just skip the entire level. Just go straight up to the end. This part's kind of annoying because the ARF, which is the cowboy robot there, shoots the little ARF dogs at you, and they're kind of random where they spawn, so it can be a pain sometimes to get an accurate shot on them, to clear them out and hit that button. Now, in the 100% run, we used to actually do Ballroom at this point. The Ballroom area is actually done later now because there's a clip that's available later in the game to cut through the entire glass case and just get the spatula in like 15 seconds. So we'll be doing that later. We're going to come back to it. And that was like one of the bigger strats that were found last year. It's actually been like around a year since the Ballroom clip was first found. I mean, that was a revolutionary discovery. It really changed every category in this game except for any percent with in-game codes, because in that category you just go straight to the end in like 2 minutes. Now, as funny as that sounds, it actually is a pretty skillful category, but yeah, there's no reason to go to the Ballroom in that category. It's become such a fast spatula, and then it was updated again to save an additional like 20 seconds. It's pretty awesome how far that's come to. Now, funny thing is here, normally this cutscene would already be over at this point, but because we used the SpongeBob trick to get on top of the Chum Bucket, we hadn't activated that cutscene yet because, again, it was impossible. We didn't have the Bubble Bowl active at the time to be able to do that. There actually is a potential skip that might save time here now, where if you enter the police station while hitting the button and leave again, hit the button, once after that again, you can actually walk around during that cutscene. So maybe we'll see some optimization there in the coming month or so. I'm going to return to grinding this category after this month in preparation for another marathon that I'm doing, Pace 2019. By the way, you guys check that out. It's going to be pretty sick. But I got to prepare for that marathon, so I'm going to spend an entire month grinding it. I already play this game every day. I already grind the game every day, but I'm not playing 100% right now. I'm currently doing the no SBA category, as I've been referencing the entire run. It's pretty sick. I like both categories a lot, But I think this category deserves a chance in a marathon. It's super cool. Again, like this area just has a lot of jumps, pretty similar to no SBA. The only difference here is that at the end of the slope, we're just going to go straight to Patrick and trade in some socks. And we're also going to avoid these Thunder Tikis because we have 4 pairs of underwear in this category, which serve as the game's lives. See in the upper left corner. We have 2 hit points left, and there's a potential damage boost you can do at the bottom of this slope. So we save 1 pair of underwear to be able to do that damage boost. Which I don't think I attempted in this run, but we'll see. We're going to go for this bowling shot to hit the Thunder Tiki. I got bad RNG. The robot got in front of me there, so I didn't get it. Yeah, you see that? It's gonna knock out the robot up there on the cliff, revealing the button. Jump spacing? All right. Yeah, this category is a nice change of pace because you skip a lot of the stuff that you'd like, a lot of like the filler content that you would do in any percent no SBA. Between the really hard tricks that it has, there are a few long walking segments, but this category kind of cuts all that out. Just because you get so many extra spatulas from SBA, you can just afford to do it later with cruise boosting. So now we're going to go straight to Patrick. And again, like I mentioned, you end here with 10 socks, so it works out perfectly. As far as loading screen preservation goes, you don't have to load the game in extra time. But now we're going to go straight to the Krusty Krab. Because you noticed earlier we talked to Mr. Krabs after leaving the Chum Bucket, which unlocks the warp, so we don't have to go inside the Chum Bucket. We don't have to go inside the Krusty Krab to get the warp. So now we're going to do the Krusty Krab with the Bubble Bowl, which is crucial in this category because, as you notice, I'm destroying all the stuff in the Krusty Krab right now. You get awarded a sock for destroying everything. So as you can see, like running across there to hit those tikis, it takes a lot longer if you don't have the Bubble Bowl. So it's definitely necessary to have it here to be fast. See, we're using a lot of projectiles here. It's super necessary. But yeah, this is a really solid Krusty Krab in this run. It was like the highlight of the run, really. So I'm just going to grab this sock. And warping to any area in the hub actually sends you right outside of the Krusty Krab to talk to Mr. Krabs. And there you have it. We're going to head to the industrial park now. And funny enough, I love this, by the way. You enter from the opposite side. Where you'd normally be gated off, you just enter from the opposite side because it's faster. That's pretty much just like, if I had to show anybody like a Battle for Bikini Bottom 100% run summed up in 3 seconds, that's what I would show them if they've never seen a run of this game before. It just raises so many questions as to like what's going on in this run, what's happening. But anyway, ironically, for the next minute, nothing's happening because we're in Robo Patrick now, boys. This phase of the fight is just kind of waiting for him to stop spinning. The Phase 2 and Phase 3 sections are actually pretty cool. More nuanced and appreciated if you understand what's going on, but to the casual eye, the casual viewer, it's not as interesting, which is understandable. But again, you can't really skip the boss fights in this game, except for the ones later, because they're just set up differently. See, in this boss fight and Robo Sandy, there's a debug mechanic that is used to, I guess, test what happens after this fight goes through. After you finish the fight, I guess the developers wanted to test what happens. So what they did was they set up a timer that's currently disabled in the base game, but if you enable it in debug, you can actually turn on the timer that ticks down, and every second it takes away 1 health. So after 9 seconds, the fight's over. You can't do anything with this in the run because it's deactivated. I guess like the only way you could really do anything with that is like if you found some like arbitrary code manipulation. Guess there was a little bit of a frame drop there. I don't know what that was. But yeah, that's probably not going to happen. For other boss fights though, other than those two, the debug tool is a little bit different. You can hit an invisible trigger, which is kind of like a trigger box that's floating in the air on some of the later boss fights. You can just hit the trigger. It's like an invisible box, and it causes the fight to end instantly. So we're going to use those later. It makes fights like the Dutchman fight a lot more tolerable. Because that fight is really, really slow casually, but in the speedrun, it's actually hype. It's really nice to watch. The really nice movement to get up to those trigger boxes, some out-of-bounds stuff. In this phase, it's a little bit more complex than it lets on. What I want is for him to land in the back half It doesn't seem intuitive, but landing on the opposite side is actually good, because if he lands in the front half, even though you get an early hit, he takes more time to turn around and grab the lever again. So what you want to do optimally is have him land very close to the lever on the backside of the ring and get a good read on where he's going to land so you can hit him without having to need like him to land in front of you. So if you can just follow him and get right up in his face, always in the back of the stage, he just runs straight to the lever and picks it up again. So this stage is, again, like more nuanced, like I said. It's got some strats that are pretty appreciated by runners who play the game pretty often. But all I did there with the vomit cycle thing, so I just got hit by the vomit just to end it early. There's like a vomit animation that goes around the entire stage, and if you don't get hit by it, he just keeps going around and around until he stops. So it's faster ultimately to just to do that, to get hit by that early and just let it end early. Now you'll notice here that I'm kind of running to the corners. I'm trying to stand in a very specific spot for when he starts to spin. Now, he always spins to the left, or excuse me, what should be his left. But yeah, I'm sorry. It's kind of late. He will always spin to what is our right. So he's always going to spin to the right in our view, which is good for us because we can just be like, okay, well, if we stand in this corner here and he spins to the right, we can predict where he's going to land if he spins in that direction. So I'm going to make my way across the other side of the stage, avoid these goo drops. Strangely enough, a common misconception here is that this robot spinning is actually RNG, but it's not. The only RNG element in this fight is where the goo drops land, which is kind of funny. It's not really intuitive, but that's the part of the run that's RNG in this area. Not even the spins that seem inconsistent. So now we're going to go get the sock in SpongeBob's closet. I attempted a couple of bubble bowl boosts there. Bowl boosts through doors. If you do cruise boost inputs, which is what I'm doing here, pressing the bubble bowl and the cruise bubble on the same frame, if you do that through a door, you can get a really big speed boost and jump across the entire room. So I attempted that twice, failed twice, no big deal. It's kind of precise, but we're going to be doing a lot of other precise tricks in this run. It's funny how now we're actually just entering downtown, when as the NSBA run goes, we do downtown as one of the first levels in the game. But because now we have the cruise bubble power up here, which is the homing missile. If you use the homing missile attack and the bowl attack on the same frame against a flat surface, you can actually strafe a bit and get a speed boost off of it. Now, cruise boosting is not just making your running speed faster, though. It's a little bit more complex than that, where it stacks onto your standing speed. So if I stop moving, you will notice that I'll keep kind of like trailing on and moving. Now here, I'm actually going to purposefully do that to push myself into the out of bounds sand. Now, as I mentioned before, when you disable the hand, you can go out of bounds, right? Well, it's not entirely true, because you can't go out of bounds in the out of bounds sand dune areas. If you stand on the sand for 5 seconds or more, you still get the hand to come back for that. You can only avoid that with the save game glitch, which is not used in this run. But it's actually a good thing there, because we want to bring the hand back into the run by standing on the sand, because we're going to use it later to skip some cutscenes. But yeah, that's the fastest way to disable at the moment, or to enable rather, because we need to have the hand back in the run for rock bottom stuff. So now we're running around collecting wheels and socks. There are 11 wheels we have to collect and trade them into Mrs. Puff later. Since it's a 100% run, we have to collect everything. And you can see now we're going to head on into the Sea Needle, which is no longer in the any percent no SBA run or the any percent SBA run. That was routed out in the past year, which is a huge routing difference that, again, has revolutionized the category and made it so much more interesting to watch and play. But nonetheless, the Sea Needle is still a really cool segment. I personally love this segment. It's super nostalgic for me as a speedrunner to this game back in the day, just grinding Sea Needle in the beginning of the run. But now, I mean, it's not in the 80% run anymore. It's not in the 80% run anymore, but it still lives on in the longer categories. And strangely, there's actually a more optimized way of doing this now, where you can actually use cruise boosting to get to these cycles faster. Yeah. As I mentioned, cycles. we have to collect this wheel here as well. This level does run on a cycle where if you mess up one of the tikis toward the beginning, it's going to mess up your cycle that you get for the end here. So let's see if I got this. Again, like Sea Needle, I've been doing this for a while. It's kind of like riding a bike for me, where I can just not do this for half a year, come back and get it first try. It's like one of those things that was just so iconic in the beginning days of running this game that, you know, it's just changed so much. Now it's, you know, it's not even at 90% anymore. Yeah, that's all we do for Extreme Bungee. We're going to go straight to Jellyfish Fields now. Again, this category's routing is super creative, where we cut a lot of stuff in half and backtrack. We're going to save the rest of downtown for later for specific reasons, but now we're going to go do the rest of Jellyfish Fields. See, this area you would normally do in no SBA with a one-frame jump on top of the cliff, but instead of that, we can do a pretty precise bash to ledge grab there to get up onto these the Jellyfish Rock and these I guess like trees, kind of. I wouldn't know the marine biology term for what that is, but they kind of look like trees, so we're going to go for that. Unlocking these boxes here are important because we can use them to jump between parts of the level later. Yeah, that's another thing too, is you're noticing like SpongeBob is still moving while this cruise boost stuff is active. Like I'm not even touching the controller and he's still moving during these spatula animations. And that's because, again, like I mentioned before, it's stacking onto your standing speed, not your running speed. Pushing forward just puts you into like a sprint kind of mode, whereas standing still is still like as fast as walking. It's pretty broken. But you'll notice that we're going to string together some moves like the bash, like the Viking helmet move, the feet move, the spinning stuff. You can string a lot of stuff together to get really far distance and jump really huge gaps. Which is, again, a reason why here we can skip doing the dilemma skip by just jumping straight over the cliff and get this spatula. So normally in the 80% run, you'd have to do a damage boost to get there. But not here. It's not the case. You don't have to do that. Yeah, where we're going right now, we're going to the... that was an accidental pickup right there. We're going to the bus stop to switch back to SpongeBob. Now, unlike the like any percent no SBA run, we're instead going to go inside of the caves. And the reason why we do that is because there's a sock that we have to collect toward the end. And there is a box that connects that area to the end of the caves, which we can clip into. In the no SBA speedrun, we actually clip into that area. But the reason why we can't use that box is because, unlike most areas in this game, where unlocking the second box automatically unlocks the first one, this is one of the few areas where unlocking the second box does not unlock the first one. If that were the case, we could just jump into the box and get the spatulas. So, or not the spatula, the sock. Because remember, we're doing all this stuff inside the cave for one sock. It's all for one sock. But thankfully, the box doesn't work because it brings across this cool strat called Geode Clip, where you just kind of wedge yourself into there, go out of bounds. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm activating a checkpoint trigger on the outside of that area. So when I drown here, I'll respawn and I'll appear behind the gate that was there before. Because normally you're supposed to be in here as Patrick. This is kind of supposed to be the Patrick tutorial level. And again, here's the sock I was talking about. This is supposed to be the Patrick tutorial level, where you learn how to use all his moves and throwing stuff. So the intended way of doing that is throwing the pressure plate, throwing the melon on top of pressure plate, and then using it to walk inside of the gate. But since SpongeBob can't pick things up, we have to use glitches to get across instead. We used to call that sock earlier the Feels Bad Man sock back in the day, back when 100% was like around 2 hours long, because you used to have to walk through the entire cave as Patrick to get it until it was discovered that you can clip through the geode and get it. So yeah, that's Jellyfish Caves. Super long segment, super fun to do. Now we're going to head on to Drain the Lake, which actually has a potential viable strat here now, where you can clip under the lake using lag clips, but it's looking to not be super viable at the moment due to how inconsistent it is. But in the future, you might see a Drain the Lake skip on the OG Xbox. And I say that because, again, the OG Xbox is the fastest version of the game. But if you play on 360, you do lose some time to loads. But, however, despite the loading screens being slow, the game is way laggier, so you can use lag clipping way more effectively on it. But yeah, for now, we're just going to use these robots to destroy the fountains as intended to get the spatula under the lake. There's pretty much a glitch or a trick to skip just about anything you can imagine in this run, except for really Industrial Park. Again, this is factoring in all categories, because there are Robo Sandy fight skips for other categories, but you know, it's only viable in one of them. But there's really like no way of even like for 100 IGC to even skip Robo Patrick, because the spatula under the level is kind of in like this weird area. There's an abyss over it, or there's an abyss below it, so you can't really collect it without soft locking. Yeah, Jellyfish Lake has some extra stuff going on in this category as well. We got to get some extra socks. Jellyfish Fields is a huge sock area in this category. This area has a ton of socks in it. So standing on this pressure plate, again, you got to be kind of careful standing on this thing, because what'll happen sometimes is if you walk too far forward and touch this like glitchy area on it, the tikis will actually appear, and they'll appear in like half size. So I just did there to hit all the tikis. To hit 5 tikis in 3 hits. You wouldn't be able to do that if the tikis did not grow to full size. It's kind of a weird glitch, but nonetheless something you gotta watch out for. But yeah, instead of going straight to the top of Jellyfish Fields here, we're gonna take a turn here and go for this sock over in the corner. There's a lot of movement in this category, a lot of cruise boosting movement, which makes it, you know, like the payoff for doing SBA in this category is huge. You finish SBA 20 minutes into the game, and you still have over an hour left to play. So it's really fun compared to the SBA version of any percent, where you do SBA, and then you have like a half hour left to playing. It's like half the payoff. So honestly, that category is really short, but it feels like it's so long, just because of how how slow paced it is. Again, it's the same speed. It's around the same speed, a little bit faster in potential compared to no SBA, but it's just so slower paced because the spatulas you get just cut a lot of actual gameplay out of the run. Just happens to work out that way. This boss fight gets cheesed really hard. You actually just use the cruise missile against it, where that's supposed to be the first boss fight in the entire game that you do, kind of like a tutorial level boss fight. We come back with the power-ups and just use it to instantly win. Yeah, Jellyfish Fields at this point is pretty much done. There are some really cool stocks we're going to do actually in this next segment back in Jellyfish Rock. And the reason why we get these socks later is because there are certain cycles that you have to meet for this level coming up, where there's this later, you'll see later, there are a bunch of barrels that float up and down in the goo. And if you're off cycle, like if you do this, check it out here. We're going to use I was attempting to use the spatula to cancel the second part of my animation for the cruise bubble, which would save a little bit of time. But you're going to see here, when I drown in this area to get the sock over here, which you'd normally have to do as a backtracking segment with Patrick. If I get this cruise boost within 2 tries, I can jump in the box over here, and you'll see there's a bowling pad where if you stand on that pad down there on the left and bowl, if you bowl a strike, I don't remember actually. I haven't played this game casually in a while, but I think you have to bowl a strike. Maybe you just got to get all the pins, but you can just get the spatula by jumping on top of it and grabbing the thing in the air, because all it does is when you hit the pins, it drops the spatula from it drops the sock from the sky. And what I just did there is I was talking about the barrel cycle before. If you miss cruise boosts or you do the barrels at a different point, the cycle is really inconsistent. So you want to make sure that like the barrel is facing you. So during that cutscene, when you hit the button, you kind of just pop off the goo and touch the spatula and touch the sock. I always refer to it as a spatula because this category, you collect so many socks in it. It's kind of hard to shake the habit of calling stuff spatulas when any percent no SBA is it's such a spatula dominated run. The reason why that trick works with the barrel, by the way, the reason why you don't drown instantly, is because cutscenes give you invincibility frames. So you have invincibility frames active when you hit the goo for the first time, so you're invincible for it, and you pop up, and then you land on the barrel. So you just kind of move around during the cutscene. Good example of how cruise boosting is used to make stuff faster. The timer is in the upper right corner of the screen because I use the cruise bubble to hit this button that you'd normally only be able to touch after you finish rock bottom. As I mentioned in my NSBA commentary, this level runs in a loop where you go through the whole thing, and when you finish it, you appear at the end. You appear at the beginning of the level after you go through the end. So that's like the final challenge, and when you finish it, you appear like at the beginning. You know, it's like that kind of a thing. A lot of levels in this game run in loops like that, where you can just kind of like abuse it, like in Goo Lagoon, where you can just do everything in reversed order because it runs in a loop. Similar thing with rock bottom, except rock bottom isn't a true loop. You kind of do stuff a little bit out of order here, but nonetheless, you're still doing stuff in an unintended order. So again, this run was recorded around like a month ago, I think, like a month and a half ago. That was before I was doing the spatula grab, skip, and runs, which was I showcased that in the NSBA run. So if you want to check that out, it shows some really cool, precise tricks in there. Rock Bottom Museum is a little bit different in this category, where I'm gonna actually get a couple more socks in here. I gotta jump across this area to get to this balcony. See, I'm gonna make a right turn. Again, this category has a lot of extra cruise boost movement, which is why it's become a little bit more popular recently. Over the years, this category has gotten a lot of flack for being, super riddled with downtime, but nowadays it's just gotten so much better. Honestly, that opinion's like super outdated. This was also recorded before the 1 second time save of getting the spatula first was found, actually. Yeah, it's crazy how much changes sometimes. Just in like a month or so. Just a little bit over a month of not doing a category, this happens. But yeah, we gotta go back to the museum to get the sock under the balcony there. Unlike the any percent run, we have not been in rock bottom yet. So we gotta go and get the trench spatula now. Getting the spatula is actually doing the level in reversed order, where you collect the spatula, you warp to the beginning of the level. Similar to like how in Goo Lagoon we use that to abuse the sea caves and stuff like that. Coming up to this trick called Sleepy Skip here. I'm gonna hit myself twice to adjust my damage cycle there. Now the reason why I do that is because when you slide across a ledge, you want to make sure that for these damage boosts where you're trying to set it up to slide across the ledge and keep momentum, you're able to use the bubble helmet on the correct frame, or the correct set of frames that allow you to get enough speed to get over. Because it's not frame perfect if you set yourself up to slide off a ledge. However, if you have a really poor setup, if you press the Y button on the wrong frame, you're not going to get enough momentum to get over. So there's one damage cycle, and there's one animation out of the 5 animations there are for SpongeBob when he gets hurt that takes 2 extra frames to go through. So the reason why I hit myself there twice was to make sure that I don't get the 2 extra frames of sliding, which would have made my setup not work. That makes sense. And also, I'm currently doing lasers now. Again, very movement-oriented segment, but what's important here is how I'm going to finish it off by purposefully falling into this ditch. And you'll notice now the hand's going to grab me and I'm going to die during this cutscene, which saves around 20 seconds just from not having to watch that cutscene. So it's huge. It's a really nice time save, and it's made possible because we bring the hand in and out of the run. So what you just saw there is we're going to actually disable the hand later again. And what do you know? I made the cycle for the sock. Again, like 100%, SBA helps so much in this category, the skee-ball abuse trick, because you can just get so many shiny objects so quickly and pay off those dumb toll gates that are required for doing like one sock or something really insignificant. Just like really expensive stuff that you don't have to deal with if you tried to 100% the game. But yeah, the rest of this game is downhill from here, really. It's so fast. It just gets more and more interesting and faster. So, Goo Lagoon. This area has a similar thing in Rock Bottom where we're going to use the cruise bubble to abuse a button that's in the distance that we wouldn't normally be able to get. You saw a little target there. That's just because the hitbox for the button is still active despite not actually paying for the clam to activate it. And you're not even really supposed to do that anyway. You're supposed to buy the clam and throw a fruit at the clam as Patrick and do like platforming to get to that area. But because we hit it with the cruise bubble, you can just use the cruise boosting tactics to jump across the castle and grab the spatula early. And a really cool thing about this category now is that there's no more grinding. Back in the day, even just a year ago, we were doing the grinding strat where you would jump off the sandcastle for 10 minutes straight to grind shiny objects with the stuff on top of it. But that's no longer in the run because of SPA. So we just go straight into the Save the Children spatula, which showcases even more movement. Again, this category is way more movement oriented than any percent is. Any percent no SPA. Whereas like that category has a lot of crazy, super cool tricks. This category has a lot of really cool tricks as well. But they're not like as like, masochistic as the any percent tricks because the category is so optimized. But yeah, I love the movement in this category. It's super nice. And speaking of movement, you're going to see some pretty cool stuff go on here in Tower Bungee area. Now, we're going to go to the Wacka Tiki machine. And again, this is like one of the funny little challenges you got to do to get socks. They're just way out of the way. Instead of using Patrick, though, to, like, what you normally have to do here is hit that button on the Wacka Tiki machine to start the tikis that actually pop up from the bottom of the stage. So, like, the way the game stores these tikis is they put them at the bottom, and see those little holes on top of the thing? You press the button, and as Patrick, you have to whack around the tikis as they pop out of the holes, kind of like whack-a-mole. But because the tikis are stored under the map, you can just go under there with SpongeBob and just hit them all. And again, this is just movement here, just getting some socks. There's a cycle here because the little raft is on like an up and down cycle where if it goes too low, you can't actually jump on top of the cliff without dying. You can use the bubble bounce move, the feet move to stall yourself in the air, grab that sock, and head back to the sea needle. So, the rest of downtown is crucial to the rest of the run, actually. Whereas in Downtown 1, we re-enabled the hand for rock bottom stuff. In Downtown 2, we're going to disable the hand for the rest of the run, which is necessary for like for Sand Mountain stuff. It's necessary for the Dutchman's Graveyard. Super important for the run. But instead of, I guess like in old school any percent, you would leave this area as sandy and do all the downtown street stuff as sandy. We're doing it all as SpongeBob now to collect the rest of the wheels. Now, a lot of people say that downtown rooftops is their favorite part of the 100% run. I agree to some extent, but there are just so many cool parts of this run now, like Sand Mountain, that just can't go unignored. It's just so much fun to play now compared to the way it was like a year ago. And instead of doing the needleless strats where you do the one frame jumps to get over here, you just use cruise boosting to get across, and holy wow. Okay, well that was really close. You see how I was like right on the edge there? I was probably freaking out. Yeah, you normally in the no SBA run, you have to use 2 super precise jumps to get across to the rooftops. So it's nice in this category, I guess, for a change that you don't have to deal with that. Even though it is less impressive, it's still, it's still fun. I'm always one for adding really difficult strats to make the game harder. But, after a while of, losing runs to downtown streets, it's it's nice to just be able to jump across for a change of pace. So now we're just going to do the same thing here. We're going to jump across these buildings. I'm going to activate this checkpoint on this building and grab this wheel, which skips a cutscene and a bunch of unnecessary movement. Grabbing that wheel and going off the edge and dying. So now that we're back, we're going to get another cruise boost. Again, cruise boost momentum is only killed by dying, taking damage, using the bubble bowl, or leaving the level. So we're going to get the rest of the wheels. I love this part for movement, by the way. You got to appreciate as well that I'm constantly being pushed forward when I perform these movements. You're in a constant, perpetual state of being pushed when you're cruise boosting. So landing on these little tiny, geometric shapes and stuff, It's a lot harder than it looks doing consistently in a run, especially one that's this long. But you're noticing that we're using cruise boosting to get all these, these socks that are kind of out of the way. There's actually a skip there now where, for this category, my bad. It doesn't actually help in this category because of this trick over here. I was going to say you can use the skip to skip the button to get on top of to get to the lighthouse door. But in this category, you actually need to use that disable trick there, where I entered under the lighthouse. There's an actual reasoning for doing that in this category. And that is because we need to disable the hand again. So, as I mentioned earlier, when you go out of bounds and you leave an area out of bounds, the hand comes back on the screen, and leaving during the hand's animation, again, like clipping through the gate there to get the wheel, mentioning that quickly before I go back to explaining. You can actually clip through this gate too to get the spatula, but it hasn't been done in a 100% run yet. I'm going to definitely work on that though before my marathon race in April. But as I was saying with the hand disable, it's super important. There's actually one frame where it works, where you can get the text box, and if you press R on the one frame where that works, you can disable the hand like on the way into the lighthouse. So it's a 0-second disable, super fast, and it allows us to complete the rest of the game with the hand disabled. And you'll see here, we're going to do some movement to get this spatula. Again, this category is all about collecting spatulas at the right time. Like, doing stuff in really strange orders just happen to be fast. It's just kind of weird how it works out that way. Because you would think that getting that spatula as soon as you spawn it would be fast, but getting it on the way to that sock and not having to backtrack all the way back is super fast. Now, Kelp Forest has seen a lot of strat upgrades. A lot of the new stuff is being showcased in the NSBA run right now, but when I get back to this category, again, it's only been like a month or so since I played it, and we already have like 2 new strats in here. I'm going to implement the Kelp Vines L control and lag clipping and swap. But there's still a lot to show here. We have the Kelp Woods movement to collect all the campers. In this level, we have to find 6 campers that are hidden throughout the world to like tell Mrs. Puff, hey, we found all the campers, they're safe. Except they're not really campers because they're just driving students who are hiding from SpongeBob. That's the lore behind it. There's actually a new movement strat here that saves a couple of seconds as well. Again, this category, while a lot of work's been put into it over the years, it's not nearly as optimized as no SBA. Like, we're still finding a lot of stuff for it. Yeah, getting this, going on that platform earlier was actually an invisible checkpoint, where now we got the sock, we drown in the goo, grab the spatula, and go back to the beginning of the level. Man, losing my voice, so much to talk about. Now, since you may have noticed that we went to this area before, like I stood on the ledge for a second before jumping straight to the button, and that's just because if you do that, you unlock the leaf at the bottom where you can jump up and go straight to the end of the level. This is actually the end of the Kelp Forest here, because again, it's like rock bottom where it loops around. So the trigger to put the leaf there, so it makes the level more open instead of being linear once you finish it, because it's like, oh, well, you finished the level, now you can just go wherever you want. So you can just touch the cliff to unlock that leaf. Now, what I just did there was similar to the thing I did in rock bottom, where I completed the time challenge without actually starting it. But in this case, it's a little bit different because I had to start it, but instead of actually doing the time challenge, I could just use the box because I already unlocked the end of the level. Just jump straight to the end, hop in the box, touch the trigger to end the time challenge, jump back up and get the spatula. And now this area is a little bit different as well because we have to get the sock that's pretty deep into the slide. There have actually been some theories about potentially collecting the sock with 1-frame slide jumps, but this late in the run would just be awful to attempt that at the moment without a ton of grinding and practice, which I'll definitely focus on once my any percent no SBA time is satisfying. But again, that category is just, it's so hard. It's probably never going to be optimized fully, so who knows when that's going to happen. Again, doing the trick where we complete the level in the reversed order to get the spatulas at the end and then warp to the beginning. Pretty classic, used in a bunch of spots in the run, it's so useful. Now we're going to do the camper and crystals in the Kelp Caves. This is a trick called Vine Climb. Missed it first try. Kind of unusual mistake, but to be fair, this trick is pretty precise. You land on the rock and you boost all the way up. Normally, you'd have to use like pressure plates and tiki throws as Patrick, and switching between Patrick and SpongeBob to hit different things. It's like a complex puzzle this level, but because the game's so broken, we can just use this to like clip out of areas like here. Let's get a pretty precise ledge grab to clip back into the map instead of having to open all these gates. So even though there was a rough start in this segment, I kind of pulled it back in this particular run because I got a couple of really hard tricks pretty quickly. So now we got to get the rest of the crystals with more out-of-bounds tech. Now, you might be wondering, like, if the order for this, the crystal collection is optimal. Like, you would think that I'd be able to jump up from here to the statue would be faster, but because cruise boosting, again, it keeps pushing you forward, and here we're going to collect this stuff out of bounds again, by the way. Because cruise boosting is pushing you forward, you have to consider that the angle that you approach the statue, it would take too much time to turn the angle to the point where it would actually work, whereas with the other approach, you're already like on your way with the right angle, so it's faster to do it first instead of second. Now, funny enough, opening the gate here is actually fast, even though there is an out-of-bounds exploit to get these crystals out of bounds and clip back in. So even though the out-of-bounds strat exists, it's not fast, which is kind of a shame because it's so cool. But I'm sure because this level is so broken, there will be more exploits found, like more clips to make that faster. There'll probably be a faster way of doing that by the end of the year, I would say. But yeah, here, just an update. The no SBA run is now using lag clips to get the spatula that you're about to see me collect. After this one, the one in the cage right here, there's a lag clip we do to cut through into the cage and get that spatula. So in a marathon run, you would see me perform that definitely. It's just it just recently became RTA viable, like within the past like few weeks. But yeah, here instead of that, I'm just gonna do a death warp. And again, the convenience of having the lag clip in this area for 100% is huge because you have to die anyway to reset and go back up here. So it would just save a ton of time in this category. Can't wait to finally put it to use. But yeah, the rest of this level is just grabbing some socks, grabbing some shiny objects. Do a little bit of a bounce on this gate. Now that area is super dangerous because sometimes you can get caught in the corner and get hit by the sleepy time or accidentally pay the gate. So thankfully that didn't happen. Honestly, it's not really a big deal though, as long as you pay attention. Like, and you play it safely, it's not going to affect your run. Now we're headed over here to get the spatula for getting all the campers. And take note that we're already at 74 spatulas coming up. And we still got a lot left. That's why this category is so much fun. So there's so much to do in it. This is probably one of the most obscure, dumb socks in the game casually, where you have to bowl in a straight line to get that. It really, like, as a kid, I think that's the only sock I couldn't figure out how to get when I was a kid. My cousin had to help me out and tell me that was like where he found that one. But I had to help him out with the ones in Sandy's Dream, so you know, we had each other's backs. Yeah, that sock, I don't know what they were thinking with that. Just hard to find. But instead of using Sandy here, we're going to use SpongeBob to get some, as I was about to say, some pretty precise jumps. Second try. It's funny how when that doesn't even work, it looks like it was nowhere close, but it's just because the trick is so precise that your feet just barely go over the ledge when you get it. It's not extremely precise, but it does require some focus to get it. But actually, what is extremely precise is the trick that's about to come up. So here we go. We got Larry Time Challenge, skip the classic run killer, which is also like it's very, very deep into this run. Along with another trick that is, you know, also pretty scary as well. Sandman 1 cycle, SM1C. So here I'm going to set this up by standing on these little dots on the ground to kind of make sure my angle is good. Face the wall with the dots, and That was a pretty quick setup, but what I was doing there is I walk into the pit, and on a specific frame, when you walk into the pit, if you press the bubble bowl and the cruise bubble on the same frame, on a specific frame going in there, you get this speed boost that also clips you through the wall. It's a tech called L bowling. And L bowling is like cruise boosting, except it's done on an uneven surface. So instead of the cruise bubble coming out and giving you a speed boost, the bowling shot comes out and gives you a kind of like a boost that can clip you through stuff. And you're going to see that used as well in the rolling ballroom later, and also in Dutchman's graveyard. Now, instead of, I tried to do a camera lock there to put myself next to the bus stop, but instead of going to the Thunder Tikis for extra shiny objects there, like in the no SBA run, we're going to go to the bus stop instead to clean up this area and grab some socks. It's funny because I don't remember the timing because it's been a bit. I think this trick saves like 20 seconds or even more than that in this category. So it saves like even a little bit more time than the no SBA does with this. So it kind of balances out where you got to do these tricks later into the run and be way more consistent at them to be able to pull them off in a run this long. But it's a lot more rewarding because you're playing for so long, and again, like, it saves so much more time. We used to have to do this all in one shot. We used to get the time challenge as Sandy and run through this level with the time challenge on, like, glitched, because you're only supposed to be able to get the time challenge as SpongeBob. So we would get the time challenge with the cruise boost, kind of drift into the bus stop while accepting the prompt, and then do the whole time challenge as Sandy, and you'd be able to barely get past the time challenge, like the casual time constraints set by the developers, while getting every sock, and still finish with like 5 or 6 seconds to spare. But yeah, we're just gonna instead, like, we cut through the entire slide because it's shaped like a U. If you clip through the top, you can just clip through. You can go all the way to the bottom if you get enough of a speed boost. So we just skip the slide, go back on, and clean up the socks. Now, this area is actually, in my opinion, it might even be a better improvement to the category than SBA. That's kind of a hot take just because SBA cuts 8 minutes off the run. But at the same time, this eliminates a lot of stuff from the game that was considered to be casual. Just having to do this slide twice. So what I just did there was I accepted the time challenge after crossing the finish line, so it wouldn't, the starting line, so it wouldn't start. So if you accept the time challenge, but after you cross the trigger point where it tells you, okay, the time challenge starts, the time challenge never actually does start. So you just keep the time challenge. You can go off the rails and spend as much time as you need. Again, it's a speed run, so we're not taking our time. But we just need more time to be able to go off the out of bounds into the out of bounds areas to get these Sandmen. Because normally in the casual play, you'd have to take at least 2 trips to be able to hit all these things. But in the speed run, we can just go straight through once, jump off a bunch of times, and get all the Sandmen. Now later into this run, you're going to see I'm going to do a crazy damage boost to jump up from the bottom level to the top level of the end of the slide. And that's the part of the run that's actually, like, difficult here, is to get the damage boost and not die, because you only have 4 pairs of underwear. With 5 pairs, it would be a lot easier, but again, it's a lot less lenient because you got to be careful about that, especially under pressure. You know, it's a lot more difficult. But yeah, as I was saying, SBA is, like, it's definitely beneficial to the category where it cuts out 10-ish minutes of grinding, but it does make some tricks like Goo Cage Clip less rewarding. It makes SB2J, which is the craziest trick in the entire game, obsolete to Sandy movement. So there are some downsides, but there are also some major upsides too. Like we've seen, this run has gotten a lot better. But I still think that Sandman one cycle is, like, it's objectively, like, better for the game. There's nothing about this category that's gotten worse from this being introduced. It's just such a cool strat. And now we're going to see the main event, all Sandmen destroyed. We're going to do a little bit of a damage stop. It's like called a damage break or a damage stock to stop off the side of the slide, kill our momentum. Now this area you can kind of stand on here. I have 2 lives left. Let's see if I can get it. And we got it. Of course I did, because if I didn't, my run would have been dead and I wouldn't be talking about it right now. That's all it is. You just do a damage boost on top. Again, like, the momentum in this is wacky. It's a lot harder than it looks to be able to get up there. especially like on a slide where you can't really hit the brakes, you know. That's how you get the Sandman sock in one go. Grab the spatula just by doing a little boost over the gate. And we're out of here. So I believe that we're going to go to the Mermalair now, just by warping straight up to the lobby. That's kind of an unusual stop on Bubble Buddy. Usually he breaks off and does like his circles and stuff, but yeah, whatever. Now we're going to go to the Mermalair. Again, this is another reason why, especially with the Sandman stuff, you need to have the hand disabled at this point in the run. You can skip this whole bungee segment by just jumping in this tube out of bounds and grabbing the spatula. Sock, excuse me. Security tunnel's kind of the same way, where we can use cruise boosting to get this sock way faster than intended. Because I got the cruise boost first try, I'm going to meet this turret cycle instead of getting hit by the turret. Usually what happens if you miss these turret cycle by missing a cruise boost, you have to wait a little bit for the turret to pass you. Now we're going to do prawn skip. This trick is pretty cool. We're going to use cruise boosting to use this exploit called L clipping, which is rapidly pressing the L button or precisely pressing it or holding it, or there are different ways of doing it, but in this particular situation it's fastest just to mash it, the L button, to clip out by using your frames of intangibility. So there are frames where you don't get your collision detected. You can use that to clip out, and then once you do that, you can jump up to the trigger. As I mentioned before, there are invisible triggers that end the fights in this game for some of the bosses, so you can jump into the trigger out of bounds, end the fight without actually touching it. Here's going to be an elbow for the Ballroom clip. This is, as I was saying earlier, it's similar to Larry Time Challenge, where we're using the cruise boost inputs on uneven surface, and by kind of like wedging ourselves out of the cage, out of the case at the same time. Like we're getting the frame that pushes us out of the case the frame before we use the cruise bubble and bubble ball in the same frame. So that causes us to take that frame of speed and transfer it into forward momentum with one frame of clipping. So that's what causes us to clip through the rolling ballroom cage. There's a lot to explain. It sounds like I'm just talking a lot, which I am, but this game has a lot of deep tech skill that's kind of hard to explain without talking all the time. Dutchman's graveyard, luckily though, is a lot of movement, so I can clear up some stuff as well. From the be more specific about some things in here, because I'm not constantly trying to play the game to catch up. That chuck there is kind of dangerous. Sometimes if you don't do the AI manipulation correctly, it can hit you with a missile. Here we're going to abuse this scripted trampoline. So normally this trampoline would put you up by the ship where the chuck is, but because we have a cruise boost active, the cruise boost speed overwrites the direction of the trampoline, so we can just get sent straight up to the boat. And that just sends us in a straight line over to the spatula here. There's actually a blue screen glitch that can happen here. And the blue screen glitch is caused by getting wedged into an object that kind of just sends you into the sky. It's kind of similar to Mario Sunshine on JP version. The Japanese version where you can get sent into the sky by the little turtle dudes in Pinna Park. Kind of a similar concept, but as long as you have a good angle, you won't get stuck there. Again, getting some socks in an unintended fashion instead of having to go all the way around this level. This skip is very similar to Cow Bungee skip. Shipwreck skip just lets you warp to Shipwreck Bungee by getting that spatula out of bounds. Now we're going to attempt a manual cruise boost here, which is just using the cruise bubble between cruise boost inputs to manually cancel the cruise bubble animation on objects that have too low of a wall to cancel themselves. And again, this is a pretty cool way of doing this spatula without actually having to get rid of your bubble ball or getting rid of your cruise boost and using the bubble ball to do it, because that all loses time. You can just kind of get stuck next to the box in the pole there if you do that. Canon's movement has upgraded quite a bit in this run. It's actually been upgraded even more since I looked into some task segments that Hazel made for this game and adopted one of the strats that was using the task for cannons. Not verbatim, but pretty close to what it is. It saves 0.3 seconds. So that's done in current no SBA runs, but when I come back to this category next month to grind it for the marathon, practice, I'm going to be doing that as well. I'm going to implement the new Canon's route. Again, if you're if this is your first time watching like a speedrun or anything, it sounds like 0.3 seconds is not a lot, but it adds up quickly if you do a lot of those harder strats to save as much time as possible. When you're really trying to scrape everything that's left in the game, it helps definitely to take those half-second time saves, or like a little under half a second. Now, this is a little bit different than no SBA, where we're going to actually get a cruise boost here and get this sock that's over on the robot ship. After this, we're going to go to Dutchman's fight, which actually is funny how we get here in the first place, because you don't have to destroy the robot cannons, which usually would trigger the cutscene that sends you here, but the cutscene actually triggers the fight to get unlocked, despite not sending you to it if you don't have the cannons destroyed. So it unlocks it in the menu even though you haven't actually done the challenge. It's kind of dumb. Again, that was like Prawn skip, where you go out of bounds, touch the invisible trigger, and end the fight. Now we're going to head over to GCC. This trick does not save as much time as it used to, now that SBA is a thing, because the main haul of it was being able to avoid having to pay so many shiny objects to unlock the cage. So the Goo Cage Clip is really... it still saves time in this category, but it's not as crazy as it used to be, where it would save like over a minute. It still works out to be really fast, though. So second try GCC, pretty okay for how long of a run this is. Now we're doing the rest of Dream stuff. This is the third return to Dream. 3 distinct segments of Dream in this run that kind of just mark the beginning, the middle, and the end. Just the recurring level you always keep going back to. Doing Squid's Dream with cruise boosting, you can get that sock. It's pretty fast. You can still make the same cycle that you would get without the sock, but again, it's a 100% run, so you have to get it anyway. Now, normally at this point in a no SBA run, we would actually go to the Sandy's Dream and do the slide and Texas style spatula, but we've already done that because we did it in the middle of the game. It's faster to do it in the middle of the game. Oh, excuse me. I meant to say at the beginning of the game. We do slide and Texas style in the beginning of the game, and then we do Swingers Ahoy in the middle of the game. So slide and Texas style is the beginning, Swingers Ahoy is the middle, and then Krabs' Dream and Squid's Dream at the end. We also do Patrick's Dream in the beginning, which is, again, the reason why like some of the one-frame jumps in no SBA are obsolete in this category. But this category gives you a lot more opportunity to show off the combat in this game as well. We're going to do a fight reload here, which is not the fastest strat, but it's way, way more consistent than doing the non-reload strats, where if you reset the level, it refreshes your invincibility, and it also causes the robots to spawn as you're accepting the prompt, so you get an extra hit on these Duplicatortrons. Normally how you would do this is destroying... See, the blue things up there is what I'm referring to as Duplicatortrons. They're the duplicator robots that spawn the robots on the grill right now. The objective is to clear the grill, and destroying each type of robot causes a piece of the burger to drop, and then you can jump on it to platform all the way up to the Duplicatortrons, where you destroy them, and then once you get all the duplicators, you just destroy the rest of the robots and you're done. But yeah, it's way faster. It's kind of funny how they oversaw the ability to hit those things with a cruise bubble. I guess that's why they put the projectiles there, like the slick with the oil shots. I guess that's why they put them there, to help prevent that from happening. But yeah, it's just kind of funny how the Krabby Patty platforms, like, you can beat it totally unintended, even with power-ups you're expected to have at that point in the game. This whole part of the run is just trading in socks, just to get us up to 98. Then we're going to head into the Chum Bucket to finish up. And man, my voice is exhausted. I'm going to be coarse tomorrow. Lord. I was able to do this because my classes got canceled for college because of the snowstorm. So it was nice to get this done, be productive. Yeah, we have 98 spatulas. We're going to go over to the Chum Bucket now. If you haven't already seen it, I believe this run utilized this trick. Yeah, okay, so we're going to use the kitchen cutscene skip. Saves half a second in this category. Again, it's a cruise boost, but half a second is worth it for some of the times I'm trying to achieve. And here we go. So This is the final fight. We're going to hit him enough times to get him to use the karate chop attack, and using that is going to kind of propel us into this trigger. Again, the same thing as the other fights where we use the trigger to launch into the end of to end the fight with the cutscene skip. Excuse me, the skip that leads into the cutscene to end the fight. Here we're going to do the newer brain surgery strat, clipping into the brain. By newer, I mean brain surgery itself is newer, but I believe that I'm going to go for the, yes, okay. So this is before I was going for the 3-second time save. That's way less consistent with the clips. These clips are all super consistent, so I guess for being a longer run, I went for this instead. But if I were to, again, do it again, I would probably just use the harder one. It's crazy how much changes in 3 months, excuse me, not 3 months, just one month and like a week or so, month and a half. You know, it's like constantly grinding the game. You're constantly seeing areas for improvement, and some strats that were hard become a little bit more consistent, and the point that were worth doing, you know. That's 100% a battle for Bikini Bottom. Hope you enjoyed. I've come to love this run, honestly. I used to be very vocal about how annoying this run used to be. Back when you had to walk over to the Wacka Tiki machine and play whack-a-mole in your speedrun. Back when you had to grind shiny objects on a bridge for like 11 minutes, or even like the museum grinding that lasted for 17 or 18 minutes. It's pretty wild that this category can be completed in 1 hour and 25 now. That's crazy to me. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully you didn't mind the slightly stretched out notifications, because this run was done like before I recently updated my layout to have the proper aspect ratio for this game. So I decided to stretch it out to make it consistent with my other run and the way the game should look anyway. But yeah, thanks for watching this. Hope you learned something or two about the 100% speed runs. And I'd love to see more people try it out. This 100% category needs a lot more, look at my chat. 100% needs more runners, man. Who's going to pick it up? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. And I'll see you at Pace, by the way. I'll be doing this run in Pace. The Pace Marathon. So check that out. You know, maybe if GDQ wants to accept one of my runs, I might be doing it there too. We'll see. Who knows? Thanks for watching, boys, and I will see you next time. Make sure you follow my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/shift if you want to watch these runs live. All of April, I'm going to be grinding this category in preparation for Pace. Until then, I'm going to be doing no SBA speed runs for the rest of the month to see how good of a time I can get. And I guess I'll see you there. Come say hi.